Every shadow looked like death, until Evelyn blinded them with light. The compound lay on the valley floor like a dark thought. Low walls, a handful of block buildings, a radio mast pinned to the night. No moon. The sky was a lid. Wind dragged dry sand across concrete in a constant whisper that made distance hard to judge and danger easy to imagine. Evelyn Stone lay prone behind a broken jersey barrier, glass biting through her sleeves. Through her NVGs, the world was green and grainy, patrols drifting in lazy figure eights, an L-shaped alley stuffed with crates, a power shed the size of a box truck on the north fence line. That shed was the heart. The enemy owned the night because they owned the switch. Hale's voice came soft in her ear. Motion on the southern catwalk. 2, maybe 3. Copy. Evelyn whispered. Hold positions. We don't trade in the dark, we change the currency. Ramirez crawled up beside her, breath quiet, rifle slung. You really think the grid's still tied in? Generators don't hum for fun. Evelyn tapped her ear, listening past the wind, past the hiss of sand. There, a diesel throb, low and steady, the pulse of a sleeping giant. North fence. Power shed. If we paint them in light, their optics become blindfolds. Gets us painted too, Ramirez noted. Then we choose what the light shows. They slid like lizards across the scrub, keeping low where the sand had drifted against the fence. The wire was old and bowed. Someone had cut and retied it so often it looked like lace. Evelyn found the section she'd mapped from a distance. Twisted ties, a telltale shine. She clipped, lifted, and breathed out as she pushed herself and her gear through the gap. The smell of diesel grew stronger, warm and oily. The power shed squatted under a corrugated tin roof, door padlocked, window painted black from the inside. A coil of spare cable lay like a sleeping snake by the corner. Evelyn pressed her ear to the steel, felt vibration traveling bone to bone. The generator was alive. Hale's whisper cracked in. Patrol turning. 30 seconds. Then we open the box, Evelyn said. She slid a slim pry bar into the hasp seam and leaned with patient force. Metal groaned, then surrendered. Inside, hot air hit her face. Generator, breaker rack, a control panel with a cracked gauge and a faded label. Flood A, Flood B, catwalk, mast all. Ramirez whistled under his breath. Looks like a Christmas tree. Evelyn traced the lines with her finger, making a map out of someone else's messy handwriting. We don't light everything at once, she said. We sculpt. Shock, funnel, freeze. She killed her NVGs, let real darkness settle for 2 heartbeats, then flipped a single breaker. Flood A. The compound exploded into day along the east wall. White arcs washed over stacked crates and a guard halfway through a cigarette. He yelped, hand flying to his eyes. Every other head snapped toward the glare, rifles rising but toward the wrong place. Evelyn smiled without humor. Move, she said. They cut along the shadow of the power shed, angling to the admin block while the east wall burned with light. Voices spiked. Orders collided. Someone fired into the brightness because fear and training don't always agree. Evelyn reached the admin corner, peeked past, saw the L-shaped alley, now backlit, bodies in sharp relief as they scrambled for positions they used to own. She toggled, Flood B. The western yard bloomed, turning every pocket of darkness into a glass case. Men dove for cover that the light stripped into theater. Catwalk guards flattened instinctively, eyes going to slits as rods and cones fought a losing war. Hale's voice came again, tight with recognition. They can't see. They can only react, Evelyn said. So we write the scene. She keyed catwalk and the elevated lights flared, bleaching the catwalks into surgery tables. Evelyn threw a smoke grenade into the alley. Under floodlight, the smoke became a glowing wall. She stepped into the edge of it and fired 2 controlled shots. The first shattered a camera dome. The second chewed the hinge of a door that had been confidence itself 5 seconds ago. Ramirez tossed a flashbang downrange. In the floodlights, it cracked like lightning hitting metal. Shouts turned feral, unfocused, not because of sound, because the light took away their favorite weapon: anonymity. Evelyn's voice stayed calm. Hale, left stair. Ramirez, with me. We cut through admin, take the mast room, plant the beacon, and open the gate. Anyone not blinded yet will be confused enough to follow the wrong noise. Roger, Hale said, already moving. Evelyn toggled MASTAUX. A stack of red obstruction beacons along the radio mast began to throb. To the enemy, it was just another light. To friendly eyes somewhere beyond the ridgeline, it was a promise. I am here. A figure lunged out of the smoke, rifle high. Evelyn pivoted, using the brightness like a third hand. He was fully lit. She was half shadow. 2 rounds center mass, 1 to taste the floor. He dropped, the rifle skittering. The compound had thought it owned the dark. It had built its confidence on it. Evelyn had stolen the night and replaced it with daylight carved to her plan. Welcome to the show, she whispered, pushing the admin door open with her shoulder. I'm running the lights. The admin block smelled of paper and oil. Evelyn and Ramirez moved through its narrow halls like smoke, clearing each room in silence. The floodlights outside still burned, throwing long, shifting shadows across the tile floor. Server room ahead, Ramirez whispered, pointing to a reinforced door. Evelyn nodded and planted her shoulder against the frame. Locked. She pulled her pry bar, wedged it against the strike plate, and leaned. The door snapped open with a pop. Inside, a rack of equipment hummed. Fans whirred under red LED status lights. Evelyn yanked the power leads, killing whatever data the enemy had running. Then she grabbed the small beacon transmitter from her pouch and clipped it to the main bus. Its green light winked once. Signal sent. Somewhere far away, friendlies were now on the move. Gunfire rattled from outside. Hale's voice barked in her ear. Contact at the stairwell. They're pushing back hard. Hold, Evelyn said. We're cutting through to the gate. They moved toward the west side exit, stepping over scattered maps and open drawers. A sudden shout behind them. 2 hostiles rounding the corner. Ramirez dropped to a knee, double-tapping the first. Evelyn's pistol barked once for the second. The bodies hit the tile, echo swallowed by the hum of distant generators. At the gate control room, Evelyn slid behind the panel. A heavy lever waited, rusted but functional. She yanked it, and the compound's main gate creaked open on reluctant hinges. Floodlight poured through like a second sunrise. Hale's voice came back, strained. They're blind but angry. 2 minutes? Maybe less. Fall back to the gate, Evelyn ordered. She crouched by the doorway, covering Ramirez as he tossed another smoke down the hall. Enemy boots pounded after them, shots snapping past. They burst into the yard, lit bright as noon. Hale appeared from the stairwell, blood on his sleeve but still moving. The 3 of them sprinted toward the gate, diving behind the last line of sandbags. Evelyn slapped a timed charge onto the power shed wall. The red LED blinked fast. Lights go when we go, she said. Extraction? Hale asked. Beacon's hot. They'll come. Evelyn racked her rifle and faced the yard. But until they do, we hold the frame. The first wave of enemy fighters broke through the smoke, dazzled by the light, guns firing blind. Evelyn fired in controlled bursts, cutting them down before they could reach cover. Ramirez reloaded fast, feeding her angles. Hale laid suppressive fire despite his wound, each shot ringing sharp under the floodlit sky. The yard became a killing ground, every shadow flattened, every movement visible. The men who had crept so confidently an hour ago now crawled like insects under magnifying glass. Evelyn felt the shift. Their rush faltered. Their fire slowed. She caught Ramirez's eye and nodded once. We just broke their night. The floodlights hummed like angry suns overhead, bleaching every shadow from the yard. The smell of cordite and hot concrete clung to the air. Evelyn's rifle bucked against her shoulder in short, precise bursts, each shot dropping another shadow that dared to move. Then came the lull. Silence pressed in, thick as the desert heat. Ramirez risked a glance over the sandbag wall. They're regrouping. Far side of the yard. I count 8. Let them bunch, Evelyn said. She toggled the radio, listening to static and panicked chatter. The enemy commander's voice cracked through, furious, ordering a coordinated push. Hale gritted his teeth, blood soaking his sleeve. When they hit, it'll be hard. That's fine, Evelyn replied. Hard's what we planned for. She checked the timer on the charge stuck to the power shed. 4 minutes. Enough to finish this if they held. The enemy surged as one, boots pounding on concrete. Evelyn fired first, shattering a spotlight over their heads. The sudden contrast blinded them again, throwing half the yard into chaotic shadow. She and Ramirez shifted positions, flanking the rush. Hale's rifle barked from the sandbags, dropping 2 men before they cleared the gate. The survivors split, some diving for cover, others pressing forward. Evelyn lobbed a flashbang into the center of their formation. The detonation turned the floodlit yard into a white void. Ramirez was already moving, catching the first stunned fighter with a tackle that knocked both into the dirt. Evelyn followed, rifle low, kicking weapons away from dazed hands. Gunfire answered from the far corner, an enemy machine gun chewing up the gate line. Hale cursed, rolling to cover. Evelyn grabbed the last smoke grenade and tossed it high. Under the floodlights it became a glowing wall, buying precious seconds. They crawled back to the sandbags as the enemy fire slackened. The smoke and glare worked together, confusing their aim. Evelyn keyed her mic. Hale, you still with us? Breathing. Mad as hell, he said through clenched teeth. Good. We hold for 2 more minutes. The attackers hesitated, not sure where to press. The compound's lights turned them into silhouettes, and every time one peeked out, Ramirez's rifle found the gap. Finally, Evelyn heard what she'd been waiting for. A distant thrum, rising. Rotor blades. Extraction was inbound. She felt the grin tug her lips despite the powder burns on her cheek. Eyes up, she called. Our ride's here. We just have to make sure we're still standing when it lands. The rotor noise grew louder, washing over the compound like a second wind. Evelyn peeked over the sandbags. The attackers were scattered now, crouched in corners, unsure whether to press or retreat. Hold them here, Evelyn said. She checked the timer on the charge. 20 seconds. Hope you like fireworks, Ramirez muttered. The first chopper swept overhead, its searchlight cutting through the floodlit yard like a blade. The enemy panicked. Half of them firing upward, the other half diving for cover. Evelyn waited until the exact moment the clock hit 0. Down, she barked, pulling Hale behind the sandbags. The charge detonated, tearing the power shed apart. The floodlights died in an instant, plunging the yard into pitch black. Muzzle flashes became the only light source, and for the first time tonight, darkness belonged to Evelyn. She and Ramirez fired in short, disciplined bursts, using the chaos to thin the last pockets of resistance. The helicopter flared and descended, rotor wash kicking up smoke and dust. Go! Evelyn shouted. Ramirez grabbed Hale under the arm, hauling him toward the gate. Evelyn covered their retreat, switching mags mid-run. Tracer fire chased them but missed. Enemy fire was wild, disoriented. They dove into the helicopter's bay as the crew chief hauled them in. Evelyn swung around, rifle braced, giving one last burst toward the compound gate to keep heads down. "Clear!" the chief yelled. The bird lifted, skimming low over the valley. Below, the compound shrank into a patchwork of fire, smoke, and broken searchlights. Evelyn sat back against the bulkhead, chest heaving, sweat and powder streaking her face. Hale grinned weakly despite his bloodied sleeve. "You stole their night," he said. "No," Evelyn corrected, watching the compound fade into distance. "I just reminded them they never owned it." The helicopter banked west toward friendly territory. Dawn was starting to creep over the horizon, pale light brushing the desert. The mission wasn't over. They had intel to deliver, defenses to rebuild. But they had survived the night. Evelyn looked out through the open bay door, the wind tearing at her gear. The valley below was still dark, except for one lone light blinking on the ruined mast. The beacon was still alive, still calling. She smiled, a small thing meant only for herself. "Let them come looking," she murmured. "We'll be ready."